Since then, no Ballister had ever married a foreigner. Society concluded that the Marquess of Dain's mind was disordered by grief. Not many months later, his lordship himself gloomily suspected that his mind had been disordered by something. He had married, he thought, a very beautiful raven-haired girl who gazed at him adoringly and smiled and agreed with every word he uttered. What he'd wed, he found out, was a dormant volcano. The ink was scarcely dry on the marriage lines before she began to erupt. She was spoiled, proud, passionate, and quick-tempered. She was recklessly extravagant, talked too much and too loudly, and mocked his commands. Worst of all, her uninhibited behavior in bed appalled him. Only the fear that the Ballister line would otherwise die out kept him returning to that bed. He gritted his teeth and did his duty. When at last she was breeding, he quitted the exercise and began praying fervently for a son, so he wouldn't have to do it again. In May of 1795, Providence answered his prayers. When he got his first look at the infant, though, Lord Dain suspected it was Satan who'd answered them. His heir was a wizened olive thing with large black eyes, ill-proportioned limbs, and a grossly oversized nose. It howled incessantly. If he could have denied the thing was his, he would have. But he couldn't, because upon its left buttock was the same tiny brown birthmark in the shape of a crossbow that adorned Lord Dain's own anatomy. Generations of Ballisters had borne this mark. Unable to deny the monstrosity was his, the Marquess decided it was the inevitable consequence of lewd and unnatural conjugal acts. In his darker moments, he believed his young wife was Satan's handmaiden, and the boy the devil's spawn. Lord Dain never went to his wife's bed again. The boy was christened Sebastian Leslie Guy de Ath Ballister, and, according to the custom, took his father's second-highest title, Earl of Blackmore. The title was apt enough, the wags whispered behind the Marquess's back, for the child had inherited the olive complexion, obsidian eyes, and crow-black hair of his mother's family. He was also in full possession of the usignolo nose, a noble Florentine proboscis, down which countless maternal ancestors had frowned upon their inferiors. The nose well became the average usignolo adult male, who was customarily built upon the monumental scale. Upon a very small, awkwardly proportioned little boy, it was a monstrous beak. Unfortunately, he'd inherited the usignolo's acute sensitivity as well. Consequently, by the time he was 7 years old, he was miserably aware that something was wrong with him. His mother had bought him a number of handsome picture books. None of the people in the books looked anything like him, except for a hook-nosed, hump-backed devil's imp who perched on little Tommy's shoulder and tricked him into doing wicked things. Though he'd never discerned any imps upon his shoulder or heard any whisper, Sebastian knew he must be wicked, because he was always being scolded or whipped. He preferred the whippings his tutor gave him. His father's scolds made Sebastian feel hot and clammy cold at the same time, and then his stomach would feel as though it were filled with birds, all flapping their wings to get out, and then his legs would shake. But he dared not cry, because he was no longer a baby, and crying only made his father angrier. A look would come into his face that was worse even than the scolding words. In the picture books, parents smiled at the children and cuddled and kissed them. His mamma did that sometimes when she was in a happy mood, but his papa never did. His father never talked and played with him. He'd never taken Sebastian for a ride on his shoulders, or even up in front of him on a horse. Sebastian rode his own pony, and it was Phelps, one of the grooms, who taught him. He knew he couldn't ask his mother what was wrong with him and how to fix it. Sebastian had learned not to say much of anything, except that he loved her, and she was the prettiest mamma in the world.